I see. Okay. So welcome, everyone. This is the March 2023 Transformation Tuesday, sponsored by the Grey Panthers NYC. My name is Michelle Arnaud, and I'm the Vice President of Grey Panthers NYC. And it's my great pleasure and honor to be here and to see all your faces and names and welcome you to this March event, which is entitled Well-Being is a Human Right, Honoring Voice and Choice. As most of you know, Grey Panthers NYC launched the series following the success of the documentary that I worked on with Jack Kupferman, our president, entitled Honoring Nursing Home Lives Lost. We aired the documentary in May 2021, and it's thanks to all of you here that we built this community to address the issues that impact all of us and that we're all trying to work to institute positive change for. So we convene on Zoom the last Tuesday of the month. So circle April 25th for the next one. It will be actually a reprise of a virtual event that's scheduled for next week, Wednesday, April 5th. So you can join either on April 5th or April 25th for the same program, or you're welcome to come to both. The April program is entitled, it's a very long title, Assuring Human Rights for Older Adults in Long-Term Care Facilities, Implementing Lessons Learned. And the panel hails from a variety of countries, too long to list here. The program is part of an annual event held at the United Nations and organized by the Open-Ended Working Group on Aging, of which Grey Panthers NYC is an active member. So details can be shared in the chat and on the website. So please feel free to join for that program as well. But today we bring together three distinguished presenters to address well-being as a human right, honoring voice and choice. Our first speaker will be Evie Kugelman, RN, who has specialized in the field of gerontology since 1976. Until 2018, Evie worked primarily as a life enhancement specialist at Pinon Management and Vivage Senior Living in Colorado, as she mentioned. Among the many, many hats she wears, she's an Eden educator and mentor, and she's co-author of the Neighborhood Guide program, which is a 29-module training to develop self-directed work teams and is operated by the Eden Alternative. In addition, Evie is co-founder of the Live Oak Project, whose mission is to reimagine, redesign, and transform long-term care services and supports. Then after Evie, the next speaker will be Denise Hyde, who joined the culture change movement in 1996 when she learned about Dr. Bill Thomas and the Eden Alternative, and realized that medication is not the key to improving lives of older adults. In 2009, Denise joined the Eden Alternative team and has been learning from, educating, and coaching hundreds of core teams in implementing person-directed care across the US and Canada as a community builder. And our final panelist today will be Chris Angevine, I hope that's correct, a community builder who joined the Eden Alternative Home Office team in 2018. In this role, she works with other community builders to coach and educate on issues of continuing care, memory care, personal care, and long-term care. In addition, Chris has experience in the food and dining industry and applies this knowledge to what the dining experience looks like in the culture change world. Her strong belief in choice and autonomy shines through in her words, and she has a knack of turning the words into actions and reality. So with that, I will pass the mic over to Evie, and we look forward to hearing from all three of you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. This is wonderful. And thank you, Jack Michelle, for having us present here. This is just such an honor. So, and I welcome all of you. It's very exciting as the names come up on the screen to see how many people are really engaged in trying to make a difference. Denise, Chris, and I, we really want to show you that life in a long-term care environment can really be a place where people can thrive, where they can grow and experience a full life. I mean, this isn't just academia. This is our experience, our life experience, what we've been doing for many, many years. But what I just described is not the norm, because the norm is the institutional model. And there are about 15,000 nursing homes in the USA, and maybe, just maybe, I'm not sure the number, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 are on this culture change journey, which is about transforming the institutional medical model to home. Not home-like, okay, but real home, not a facility, but a home, because this is where people are living for the last years and months of their lives. And please understand that nursing homes were built to look and feel like hospitals, yet this is where people live. And no one is meant to live in a hospital. But I'd be remiss if I didn't share the beginning of not only Eden, but the culture change movement, which Eden is very much a part of. And Dr. Bill Thomas, who started the Eden Alternative, he was also instrumental in starting, with others, this culture change movement. So in the early 90s, I'll just give a little bit of history about how this began. Bill took a job as a physician in a small nursing home in upstate New York. And the facility, and I'm using that F word here because it was a facility, it was more of an institution, but they had a proud history of compliance with state and federal regulations. And in every way, they were a credit to the community. At one point, it had 5 consecutive perfect state inspection surveys by regulatory standards. That's a good facility. And again, I continue to use the F word, not something I use very often. But Bill's life was about to change forever. Sometimes you're at the yellow brick road and you have to make a choice. His eyes began to open to what he called the 3 plagues, because one day he was asked to see a woman about a rash that had developed on her arm. And after he examined her and he was going to write a script to treat the rash, he asked her if there was anything else he could do for her. And she reached up and grabbed his arm and pulled him towards her and said, "Doctor, I'm so lonely." Well, Bill was stunned. I mean, lonely? I mean, what do you do with lonely? He never learned anything about lonely. How do you treat lonely? Is there a medication for lonely? So, Bill being Bill, and, you have to understand, Bill is a Harvard-trained physician, graduated cum laude. I'm losing my words here. Top of his class, okay? Bill is brilliant. But he went home and he searched. He wanted to figure out, he was perplexed. He didn't just ignore this woman. He wanted to find out, how does he treat her? So he searched his medical books, looking for an answer on how to treat loneliness. And there was nothing. But you have to understand, Bill, if you've ever met him, he's a man with much curiosity, vision, and heart. So he went back to the home and on his own time and observed for 3 days. He just moved all around the home and observed the life in this nursing home. And what he saw, and nobody was talking about, was something that he saw so clearly. He saw that both the people who lived in the home and those who worked there were suffering from what he ended up calling the 3 plagues of loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. And so he and his wife, Jude, then set out to establish a new paradigm to change this. And they developed the 10 principles of Eden. So let me just quickly go through the principles, because I think it's really important to understand this whole approach, to what Eden is. So principle 1, which he called the problem statement, says loneliness, helplessness, and boredom are painful and destructive to health and well-being, okay? Principle 2 is the solution. A caring, inclusive, and vibrant community enables us, regardless of our age or ability, to experience well-being. Principles 3, 4, and 5 are what are called the antidote principles. Principle 3, we thrive when we have easy access to the companionship we desire. This is the antidote to loneliness. Principle 4 says we thrive when we have purpose and the opportunity to give as well as receive. And this is the antidote to helplessness. Principle 5 says we thrive when we have variety, spontaneity, and unexpected happenings in our lives. This is the antidote to boredom. Principles 6, 7, and 8 are the practice principles. Principle 6 says meaningless activity corrodes the human spirit. Meaning is unique to each of us and is essential to health and well-being. Principle 7 says we are more than our diagnosis. Medical treatment should support and empower us to experience a life worth living. And principle 8 says decision-making must involve those most impacted by the decision. Empowerment activates choice, autonomy, and influence. And then principles 9 and 10 are known as the drivers. Principle 9 is building a collaborative and resilient culture is a never-ending process. We need to keep learning, developing, and adapting. And principle 10 says wise leadership is the key to meaningful and lasting change. For it, there can be no substitute. So based on these principles, the Eden Alternative was established, and it is a global not-for-profit network that provides education and consulting and how to transform that institutional way of being in the long-term care to home, real home, and ensure well-being for all who live, work, and enter the community. So the 3 plagues of loneliness, helplessness, and boredom exist in part because of the assumptions we make about people due to their age or how their abilities may be different from ours. So we're going to do a little graffiti exercise, okay? I don't know if any of you have ever done a word cloud, a Mentimeter word cloud. This is a little bit of fun. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And what I'm going to ask you to do is go on your tablets or your phones or whatever, go to www.menti.com. Okay, and once that comes up, put in the code 22699276. What you're going to do when you get there is you're going to think of all the negative descriptors that you can, that you've heard to describe older people, okay? And just like you're in a bathroom somewhere, you see graffiti on the walls. This is what you're doing, creating a graffiti wall, okay? And don't hold back. Don't be politically correct. So all the negative descriptors you've ever heard to describe older people. And if you see a word up there that you like, that you think of, type it in again because it'll just make it bigger. So just type in those words, www.menti.com, and use the code 22699276.
And I put it in the chat as well.
Thank you so much. Difficult, confused, smelly. Keep going, guys. Don't hold back. You're on a roll here. Decrepit, frail, scary. Sad, confused. Remember, we're describing old people. I'm an old person. By American standards, I'm an old person. I'm 73 years old. I'm difficult, frail, decrepit. I have bad, I'm ridiculous, aggressive. Keep going, keep putting these in, okay? And we'll send them to Grey Panthers, and you can post them if you want. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but don't stop putting in, because I just want to carry on a little bit more with you. The problem. Sorry, I just have to move something here. Ageism is the prejudice against a person because of their age. Okay, and so this is a real prejudice that we have in probably the world, certainly in North America, and it affects everything about us. Okay, everything we think about, everything we do when we see an older person, it affects our systems. Okay, now we're going to do another Mentimeter. Okay, this time we're going to talk about ableism, and ableism is the prejudice or judgments based on someone's physical, developmental, psychological, or cognitive capabilities. Okay, so I'm going to put this up, and I'm going to share my screen with you as well in just a second. There it is. Okay, and share screen, and do the same thing. Only this time you're going to go to www.menti.com and use the code 5537539. So www.menti.com and use the code 5537539. And I believe it's in the chat box as well. So again, do the same thing. Don't hold back. Don't be politically correct. Just put in everything that you can think of. Threatening, useless, stupid, needy, clinging, scary, can't do anything. Dependent, ignorant, waste of resources, whoa, needy, stupid. Okay, keep putting them in. Don't, and again, we'll share this. I do have to apologize to Denise and Chris. I went out of order, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. I just realized I went out of order, but we'll talk more, keep putting those words in. I'm going to turn it over to Chris and we'll talk about this a little bit more later. Sorry, guys.
No, not at all. Thank you so much. I think it's really important to step back and say, what have we been told? What have we been taught? What did you grow up with as far as these isms go? So we'll be revisiting these again and talking about it a little later in our talk. I want to think about, now we talked about those 10 principles of the Eden Alternative. So, and I appreciate someone that said in the chat box, they just love them. We will get you copies of them, no problem at all. We look at those principles, you know, like a vibrant community, paying attention to loneliness, hopelessness, and boredom, wise leadership, empowerment, medicine. I'm not my diagnosis. I'm Chris Angevine, a lover of mac and cheese, and I have a fur family, and that's who I am. I'm not my diagnosis, right? So when we think about those things, we use these principles as kind of the car, right, to get to our destination. Now, what's the destination? Well-being, well-being for all. And well-being, we talk about as a contented state of being. So when your well-being is in balance, I guess, would be the way to say it. I want you to think for a minute, and you can enter it into the chat box, please. But what do you need for your well-being to be in a good place in your life? How do you experience well-being? What does that look like? I said a couple things. Hey, my well-being's in check when I'm eating my Kraft macaroni and cheese. I travel a lot, but I'll tell you, I do love being home with my husband and my fur babies. That makes me feel secure. That helps my well-being. I see some choice and control. Yes. Absolutely. Autonomy, right? Having choice and control over our own lives and things that are important to you. I love it. Self-love, no fear. Yes, to have a purpose. Yes, we all want to be players, not pawns in our own lives. We want to be players, that's for sure. Relationships, yep, connectedness, access to assured healthcare. Doesn't that make you feel secure? It makes me feel good that I have the access to. Feelings of safety and connection, self-regard, growth. You guys are phenomenal. Thank you so much. Yeah, you can keep putting them in there. Privacy and peace. Yeah, we'll talk about loneliness. I mean, you have loneliness, but you also have solitude. And the two are not to be confused, right? And that's why we were all unique individuals, and our well-being may look different and usually should look different for each one of us. So I'm going to swing it over to Denise, my teammate, and she's going to talk about something that we have called the 7 domains of well-being at the Eden Alternative. So Denise.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So in 2004, the Eden Alternative got a grant, and the grant was designed to help us define well-being, because the OBRA 87 had happened. So all the regulatory guidance for long-term care communities had been developed, and it states repeatedly in there that the goal is to establish the highest physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being of the residents as possible. It says it over and over and over again, it says this phrase well-being. And then the Eden Alternatives mission is to improve the well-being of elders and their care partners by transforming the communities in which they live and work. So we brought together a group of thought leaders in this whole culture change movement. And we said, okay, what is well-being? And then can we put some structure around it? So they defined well-being as a contented state of being. So I appreciate that contentment is one of the things you put in the chat box. But we believe that well-being is the path to a life worth living. And it's what everybody desires. It matters not what your life situation is in the moment. Everybody wants well-being. It is the outcome, the ultimate outcome of a human life. And so we believe the 10 principles, like Chris said, are the vehicle that get us to the destination, which is well-being for all. So this group identified 7 domains of well-being. So as you think about what you've been putting in the chat box or what you wrote down in front of yourself, oh, here we go. I like this, Melody. Thank you. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Perfect. That's what we're trying to get to. So this group identified 7 domains of well-being. So as you think about what you need to experience well-being, see where they fit for you. And it may be that they fit in more than one domain. So I'm going to read them over and you can kind of ponder that, and then we'll talk a little bit more. So the first domain I'm going to talk about is identity. Identity is about us being well known, having personhood, having individuality, having wholeness, having a history. And the thing about identity is that part of it is what we know about ourselves and what we want to convey to the rest of the world. But part of it is about what the rest of the world imposes on us. So our identity is held both by ourselves, but it's also held by those around us. And so I like the exercises that Evie started us on, thinking about ageism and ableism and how that affects our identity. So what do you need for well-being that speaks to your need to have a strong identity? Just think about that. The second domain is connectedness. Connectedness obviously is a state of being connected, being alive, belonging, engaged, involved, not detached. It's about being connected to the past, the present, and the future. It's about being connected to your personal possessions, connected to the place that you are in, connected to nature. It's about being connected. So what on your list of needs, I'm looking in here to see, so connectedness. Yep, I see Karen said feeling of safety and connection. Yeah, so what did you all put in your mind in terms of what you need for well-being that speaks to your need to be connected? The third one I'm going to talk about is security. Security is having freedom from doubt, anxiety, or fear, feeling safe, certain, assured, having privacy, dignity, and respect. So when you think about what you need to experience well-being, which of those needs speak to your need for security? Your need for security. All right. The next one is autonomy. Autonomy is about liberty and self-governance and self-determination and immunity from the arbitrary exercise of authority, having choice and having freedom. So what did you list in your needs for well-being that spoke to your need to have autonomy and how important that is in your life? The next one is meaning. Meaning is about, significance, heart, hope, things that are important to you, things that you value. It's about purpose. It's about reflection. It's about sacredness. So what did you identify in your well-being needs that speak to meaning and meaning in your life? And the next one is growth. Growth is about development and unfolding and enriching and expanding and evolving over time. And so what did you think in terms of your needs for well-being that speak to your need to keep growing? Having that opportunity to grow in your life. And then the last one is joy. And joy is a moment, and then life goes back. And then there's joy, and then life goes back. So it's happiness, it is pleasure, it is delight, it is contentment, it is enjoyment, it is all those things, but it happens, and then it settles down, and then it happens, and then it settles down. So what in your life speaks to your need to have joy? Which of your well-being needs speak to joy? Now, I'm going to guess that some of the things that you identified for your well-being fell into more than one of those domains, one of those 7 domains, because there's a lot of cross-pollination, if you will, because well-being is a very subjective thing. So it's really fun when we go to trainings, Chris and I will have people fill out Post-it notes and all the things you need to have for well-being, one thing per Post-it, and then we'll have the 7 domains up on flip chart pages, and we'll have people go put their Post-it notes up. And it's really interesting how something that's in one domain also shows up in this domain and also shows up in that domain. And so it's a very individual experience. So it's okay that you found things that you need in your domains, in your well-being that touch on many different domains. So that's our goal, is to get to the domains of well-being. So Evie, do you want to bring back up that Mentimeter on ageism, and let's see where we're at with that. See if anybody wants to add to that. All right, so we'll look at this. And again, you can go to menti.com, and the code up there is 22699276. And think about all these words, and you can keep adding to the list. Absolutely. Dangerous, illness, carrier, confused, sad, difficult, ridiculous, broken down, dependent, repulsive, old geezer, decrepit, lost, aggressive, ugly, slow, scary, smelly, frail, difficult, sad, fragile, bad drivers, out of touch, worthy, clinging, and useless. So when you think about all those words, how is that impacting your well-being right now? How are all those words impacting your well-being right now? Which domains are really challenged for you? Is it affecting your identity, your connectedness, your security, autonomy, meaning, growth, or joy? You guys are welcome to unmute as well. Yeah, killjoy. It's affecting all of my domains. Yeah, having permission to not like bingo. I think that's an autonomy thing, boy, big. Yeah. What elements of your well-being are starting to fade away because people hold this as part of your identity now? Out of touch, confined, hard to connect with, clinging. Yeah, thank you. Affecting your self-confidence, sorry. Yeah, feeling marginalized. I am me. Yeah, so here we are. Aging with purpose and power, and all of this is coming at us. And it affects our well-being. It affects our well-being. All right. Chris?
Thank you, Denise. And thank you, everybody. There are such wonderful comments in the chat box. I want to read them all aloud, and that would take the rest of the time here. So, but I just really, I'm so excited you're all just getting in there and expressing your thoughts. They're beautiful, so smart. I just love it. I had to say that. So Evie, could you pull up the ableism graffiti wall that we did? So again, ableism, these isms. So ableism is discrimination against someone based on our perception of their abilities. Our perception of their abilities. Okay, so that's ableism. So if anybody wants to, again, chime in a little bit more about this, someone with different abilities, and that does include living with someone with dementia, And the code is 5537539 at www.menti.com. So much like Denise just did with ageism, think to yourself, if this is how either you're beginning to see yourself because of something that happened, maybe a change, or it could just be something you're born with. Maybe you've grown up with these, or maybe you had an event. I know my cousin Kevin, he was an avid skier and, just a man around town, good with the ladies, all that good stuff. And in his mid 30s, he had an accident at work and he was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Now, how did that affect how he looked at himself and how society looked at him? Right? My mom has recently started walking with a cane, right? And she needs extra help kind of getting around. Well, I went with her to do her taxes. The tax lady who has known my mom, who has dealt with her for years and years and years, started looking at me and started talking to me and not my mother. I said, talk to my mom. I don't know anything about her taxes. This is how quick things happen like this in our society. So what elements of your well-being might be affected with these ageism beliefs, right? Unintelligent, dependent, can't learn, nothing left to give. Again, these are things that come at us, and because we're taught so well, or we hear this message all the time, we begin to believe it in ourselves. Yeah, a burden, slow comprehension. My cousin Dave, he lives with the Arkham Monroe in Rochester, New York. He can get you to take him to Dunkin' Donuts like nobody's business. He figures it out. He is a smart cookie. He remembers more things about directions and yeah, absolutely. But we have these misnomers that we don't really pay attention to. Each person is that unique individual. So how do we find that out? So thank you. Yeah, thinking how it might affect you. Yeah, I see something good in the chat box here. Yeah, Melody has a little story here. I went to the self-checkout. Staff who was not helping others at the staff checkout immediately came to me saying, I'll help you, ma'am, thinking I'm not capable of using the technology. Yep, assumptions, for sure. Worse than visible, and worse than invisible. Yeah, people look away. It's not something we want to see. Not something we want to see. All right, so thinking of that, I want to think about, again, we mentioned the plagues of the spirit, right? Loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. So loneliness is the pain we feel when we want companionship. We can't have it, right? Helplessness is when we're always receiving care and we never have an opportunity to give. And at the Eden Alternative, we define care as helping another to grow. It's not medical care, but we're always giving, or we're always receiving and we're never giving, or we're always giving and never receiving. There's a sense of helplessness around that. And boredom is when our lives lack variety and spontaneity. So how does this play in to our well-being? How is it tied in to our contented state of being? These ageism and ableist beliefs. Think about that for a minute. All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Denise, because she has a way of taking this just a little bit further. So we've been talking about our well-being right now, and she's going to take it a little further down the road.
I feel like we've already shrunk them enough. We're closing their windows on them. I'm reading the chats, and it's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Okay, so here we are. We are aging, and we are needing more assistance with our daily lives. And now we find ourselves needing to move to a place where we can get access to the assistance we need 24/7. And guess what? Someone else thinks they know better what you need than you do. So now they're making decisions for you, and they're setting up the programming, and you're going to get your bath on this day at this time, and you're going to go to these activities whether you want to or not. We're pushing you down there. We're getting you involved. we know what you need to eat. We got your food all planned. You don't have a choice in that. And here's the times that you're going to eat. And everything is all scheduled, put in place. Systems are efficient and effective. Woohoo! How's your well-being doing? Yeah, Michelle's like that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it can be painful. I mean, your identity is now wrapped up in, I mean, I've said in plenty of care plan meetings, identity suddenly becomes a list of diagnoses. Connectedness is all about what we believe we can connect you with and who we're going to give you permission to connect with and not permission to connect with. And if you need to get out of here, we probably don't have transportation to get you connected back into those community groups that you wanted to be involved in. And your church doesn't call here. Other churches come here. Security, different care partners every day, different employees caring for you every day. You only have this much wall space to claim your space. Everything else is provided. You don't have a choice on pillows, bed, mattresses, linens, nothing like that. You can't leave your door open at night so people can watch you and check on you. Autonomy, stripping away at that. Yeah, Melody says a close friend who's at a sniff is treated like a nobody, that she's dumb. She has MS. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's really hard. And working in it is not any easier than I'm sure. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge because of our system is broken, which is why the Eden Alternative provides a better answer. We want to get out of that and move into something better. So Evie, tell us about where we go from here. How do we get back out of this? And you are muted, Evie.
You know, I always say, if you're not aging, you're dead. And I really would like people to really understand that there's no one exempt from aging. We're all in this journey together unless we die early. So, you know, one of the things we know is there is a way out of this because we've been living this, some of us, for 30 years and making a change and a difference in the long-term environment, whether it's at home or in a community, in a assisted living or independent living or skilled nursing facility, skilled nursing home, excuse me, I drop into the F word sometimes. We know that principle 2 is the solution to the 3 plagues. A caring, inclusive, and vibrant community enables us, regardless of our age or ability, to experience well-being. And we believe this at our core. In Eden, we, as Chris said, in Eden, we say caring is helping another to grow. This means that absolutely everybody receives care. Not just people who need a treatment or who have a diagnosis, everybody. And we believe in creating communities where everyone's voice is heard, their ideas, their concerns, their input. It's where relationships are being encouraged and developed. That doesn't happen in the institutional model. It happens when people go on this culture change journey. We believe that there should be vibrancy. It should be alive. When I walk in, I want to see life. I want to see laughing, conversation. I want to hear music. I want to see colors, art on the walls. I want to see a nice environment that's not institutional. I want real smells from food, real food that's cooking, or even aromatherapy, that works too. Not to cover odors, but to create a pleasant therapeutic environment. I don't ever want to see people lined up in the lobby, stooped over in their wheelchairs, looking half dead. I've seen it too many times in my life. I've been in this journey a long, long time. We know long-term care is not only broken, as was said previously, but it's clearly a failed system because it avoids caring for the human spirit. You know, it's doing a better job than it used to when I graduated in '71. It does a better job in dealing with diagnosis and treating those conditions, you know, since the old days. But there is nothing being taught or little being done to connect with that whole person. We are so much more, as we've said, than our diagnosis. You know, we're so much more than what our different abilities are. We are all whole beings with a lifetime of experience. We're individuals. We all have our own values and beliefs and ways of managing ourselves in this really challenging world we live in. But as long as we're alive, we need to be seeking meaning, purpose, and relationships. And if we look deeper into the antidote principles 3, 4, and 5, we are looking for ways to alleviate those 3 plagues. But to do this, we have to know each person so very well. It's not enough to know their diagnosis. I mean, I was told way back in the day when don't get involved with your patients, that, you know, they're going to die anyway. And, you know, in my mind, I thought, oh, well, are all going to die, so I shouldn't get involved with anybody. You know, that's craziness. That's not why I became a nurse. It's to connect with people, to know them really well, and to realize and help them through the difficulties they may be having due to their diagnoses. I want to know what they love. I want to know who they love, what they love to do, what are their interests, their hobbies, and how do they relax? How do they have fun? What kind of work did they do? What are their spiritual or religious practices? I want to honor that person for everything that they believe in and do. How do they express their feelings? Can they cry? What are their feelings? Okay, you know, are they crying? Are they angry? We know that there's no such thing as a behavior. Yet you hear the B word all the time, the behavior word. There's no such thing. It's an unmet need. If somebody is withdrawing or crying out or combative, I don't care if they have dementia or not. I don't care what their diagnosis is. If they're expressing something, then we have to figure out what they are expressing. It's an unmet need, and they can't necessarily tell us. So our job is to find out. So that list just of what I want to know about the person, it just grows as we get to know them. But to do this, we need to be in relationship with that person, where we get to know each other over time, and we start to really care for one another. And this is why we believe in something called consistent assignments, the same person taking care of the same people all the time, and that relationship not only begins to develop, but that the staff member can anticipate the elder's needs, and they don't have to beg and scream and plead. We don't ever want to see that. We want to know what they're wanting at any given time, their rhythm of the day. And it also means that staff know their strengths, the elder's strengths, and builds on them. For so long, this institutional model looks at their deficits, what they can't do, and they care plan to what they can't do. In 30 days, they're going to walk 3 feet. I mean, that's a bunch of baloney. I mean, yeah, no, I'm not saying that. We need to obviously meet their physical needs, but we can't replace their psycho-spiritual needs. That's so important for everybody. You know, if we constantly look at what they can't do and do everything for them, we take away their abilities very, very quickly. And some people succumb to them. Some people are combative and angry. But no matter what, it depletes their autonomy. And yet, you know, with consistent assignments, we know that over time, this trusting, caring relationship develops, and it's so beautiful when it happens. And that elder has a sense of belonging to a community. They have that relationship. They have people that they consider our family in many ways. And this is the opportunity to thrive. They have control over their lives. I know I will not go down if somebody tries to take control over my life. I will be very, very difficult. So for people to be successful and ensure their autonomy, everyone should be in charge of their rhythm of the day. When they wake up, when they go to sleep, what they eat, when they eat, how they bathe and when they bathe. Who bathes them? I mean, if it's a woman, do they want a man bathing them? We have to ask that question, you know, and how many people see them naked in a week? We have to limit that exposure to things that make us feel demeaned or put down or less than. And each of us needs to be in charge of our life and to be part of any decision making about us. That's huge. And, you know, I heard this from people living with dementia, nothing about us without us. This means we enter into a world of what we call care partnership. We are care partners to one another. The elders are care partners, the staff are care partners, the families are care partners. We enter into a relationship where all give and receive, where we have trust and genuine human caring for one another. And I'm saying the staff too, they have to care for one another instead of fighting with each other. But for all this to happen, there has to be an organizational redesign to ensure that the culture is flexible, where everyone is empowered to care for one another. There needs to be a change in policy and procedures to ensure that this person-directed community is a place where all can grow and feel valued. And I mean, this is a staff retention strategy as well. And for people to just feel loved and cared about, what a difference that would make. Oh my God. This is the dream that I have, that we see this in all long-term care environments in the future. And now I turn it over to my friend, Chris.
Wow, Evie, thank you. I think you just hit on so many different important things. Thank you. Yeah, so I want to ask you now. So we're kind of getting to the end. We're going to have a little time for questions. Hopefully, you guys have been a lively bunch. I love it. This chat box is blowing up, and I so appreciate the comments. I just want to say, Marjorie, thank you for putting in there. I know you said I've been in one of those places, and now I'm free. And that is how it looked. It looked that way, right? Like the prison. So I do appreciate the comments again. So I want you to think about, now that you have learned a little bit about loneliness, helplessness, and boredom, how this ties into ageism and ableist beliefs. Now you're going to move into an Eden alternative environment, or one that has really embraced person-directed care. What does your well-being look like now? Think of those 7 domains of well-being. So Evie just talked about so many different things. And I'm glad, Evie, thank you, that you touched upon the staff's well-being. This, of course, is about the people who live there and call this place their home. But also, in order to have this community is just, it's everybody coming together, right? So how well known is the staff? How well known is the staff's kids? How well known is their family members, volunteers? When we come together in community, again, this is not a passive role. I have a great community on my little street I live on. I live on Mulberry Street in the city. Yes, it's as cute as you could think it would be. Now, I'm not involved in everything on that street. They do lots of stuff. We have Porch Fest and little gatherings and potlucks, and I don't do everything, but I do participate in quite a few things. Halloween, I have no kids, so I'm full-size candy and glow stick lady at that point, right? I want to support my community on my street, but it is not something we can just sit around and not be a part of. And when we say we are involving individuals, if this is empowerment, in decision-making and autonomy, that just doesn't mean wheeling someone up to a table or having them present. It's really sitting there and listening and making sure we are asking questions that don't put people in jeopardy of not being able to answer them, maybe if they're having a cognitive challenge. It's being very aware of how do we include everybody and hear from people's voices, because I think we all know, I've learned a lot from people who can't verbally say a thing. They have taught me, they have given me things. I had a gentleman once give me sunshine. I swear it was the most beautiful thing. So how do we come together in true community where that care partnership, that giving and receiving, that well-known, having meaning, purpose, respect for each other, learning about each other's cultures. How does that all come into play to truly come together? Not in a medical model, not in a hospital model, not in a hospitality model either, but in true community. So, yeah, I think I see a lot of questions coming up in the chat box. But yeah, just think about that. Do you feel different in that environment? Because sometimes I know I go around and teach and consult at a lot of different places. And I want it to be different, not only for the people living in different organizations and homes now, but much like Evie, when I go in and you're trying to wake me up at 8 a.m., it's not going to be pretty for any of us. So let's really stop and get to know each other so this can be a better, I don't know, do I want to say world? That's so lofty, but yes, a better world in this. So I think I will, we got a good 10 minutes and it looks like we have a lot of questions, Denise.
Absolutely, the chat box is really exploding. So absolutely, we invite you to unmute and speak up. We do want to hear. There's been some questions about like administration, leadership, ownership, and yes, that is a big challenge that we have. because for some reason, caring for people as they age and need assistance has become more about the money that you can make out of it than it has out of the quality of life. And we know that. We're aware of it. We are trying right now. I've got a group of people that want to do a better job of explaining the return on investment, that this actually drives census up and this actually helps people be healthier and live with you longer. So it all works if you do it the right way, and you have fewer conflicts, fewer turnovers, because people are happy and they want to be there, and this is their second home, and they want to be a part of life. But they won't do it just because it's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, at least I've met leaders that it is, but I've met more leaders that it's not. So it's a challenge.
What's the call to action? I see Janine Ferrari here has asked, how do we convince long-term care administrators that implementing these principles helps them? What do you recommend?
So one of the things, we're doing a project in Tennessee right now, and the state of Tennessee, as well as the state of Michigan, and I think it's available in Ohio and Colorado. Those are the 4 states I know really well, where their state government has said, if you go down this path to person-directed care, if you are implementing person-directed changes in your communities, we'll give you more reimbursement per bed or per person that you're caring for. So they actually get a kickback and an up on their Medicaid reimbursement because they are doing these kinds of changes. Now they have to prove to the state that they are making these kinds of changes. And so Eden Alternative actually becomes one of the things that is a proving point. So if they are working with us and we are certifying them, if you will, or giving them a certificate that they are involved with what we are doing and implementing our ideas, that is a proof point that they can use with the state. So that's one way that you can do it at a state level. You don't have to go to the federal government to do it. Yeah, that doesn't help private care. I agree, Karen. I wish I could figure out how we get into the assisted living, home and community-based services. We're trying to figure that out, how we kind of leverage our influence in there. So if you guys got ideas, please send them through Evie to us. That would be awesome.
Denise, Jack has his hand up.
Go.
Yeah, I was just thinking that with those 4 states, was there a demonstration of cost savings in some fashion?
I cannot answer that question, but that's a really good one, Jack. I don't know. Evie, do you have any idea in Colorado? Because you were there for a long time.
No, I mean, this has just come about, actually. And so this would be a good question at our next meeting of the Live Oak Project, because I mean, there's a lot of groups out there that are really fighting for change right now. Don't think that just know that there are activists out there who are, there's the Moving Forward, which came out of the NASEM report. There's the Live Oak Project. There's many other groups, Essential Caregiving, that are fighting right now to make a difference. But no, I can't answer that question.
So I do know, Jack, that if you go to the Pioneer Network website, do some searching. They have done case studies where they've actually had analysts, people that can analyze numbers and statisticians and stuff, go into communities and do case studies and evaluate the financial payoffs. And then a rather large corporation, Signature Healthcare, did a research project on this. And so their paper has been published. And they talked about the financial gains that they had with lower turnover. I mean, it costs $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 or more to replace every person that drops out of employment in a long-term.
A CNA, a nurse with the higher your position, the cost goes up to replace. Okay. So yeah, sorry. I just wanted to throw that in. Yeah.
So even if you can just retain a few more employees, that's a huge cost savings right there. But yeah, it's been hard to prove because the world believes that it's fluff stuff. It's the stuff you do when you get everything else right. And the truth is you can't get everything else right if you don't do this stuff, but we can't flip it around and make it foundational, but we are working on it and we're going to continue working on it.
If I can just add, when I worked in Colorado for Pinion Management and then Vivage Senior Living, I was a culture change specialist and I was helping the homes do the transformation from the institutional model to home. And certainly I can tell you that when they started serving real food, to people, food that they wanted instead of anything that looked like cat food. You know, the costs went down in the supplements. I mean, there's many cost savings that when you're in a home environment, and when people are happier, when people are less depressed, they're not depressed because they're thriving. Then there's less medication, and there's happier everybody. You're spending less time in putting out the fires. And so, I mean, we could go on and on for days on this subject, but, you know, I mean, there's so much to talk about here. But know that, you know, although I don't have data in front of me, I certainly have the experience of what I saw, the transformations that happened.
And Gilbert has a very interesting point here. I don't know, Gilbert, if you want to unmute. You mentioned, how about managing a nursing home as a conductor leads an orchestra, where every instrument is important for making music.
And Denise put in a wonderful link there.
Right. So Denise, do you want to mention that?
No, Michelle, the problem I have is that the administrators do not get trained to manage. They are trained to just sit in a chair and issue orders. And you know, I found that the best way to manage any company, anything that you want to manage, you do it by managing, by walking about.
Yeah.
With a little clipboard and a pencil. And you go to everybody and say, how can I make your job easier and better? How can I make you be happier in your job? And I make notes. And within 24 hours, whatever you ask for, you get. And guess what? Everybody does a better job, everybody's happy, and the company makes money.
You know, you're so right on, Gilbert.
Ever use management processes as part of running hospitals or nursing homes.
Right.
Yeah, you're right on, Gilbert. And I, you know, I have to tell you that, yeah, they don't learn it. There's many training, leadership training courses to make them an effective leader, but, you know, they have to want to do it. Certainly, there's nothing in their training that gives them that, but we're trying to work on that too, to make that part of the training for any administrator, that they learn this. Just quickly, I had an administrator that his place was really, people were quitting. Everybody was upset. I'd walk in the door, they would attack me. And I said to him, they're afraid of him. They've never seen him. He says he has an open door policy, but he never leaves his office. I said, all I want you to do every day is go out every day, make rounds, talk to everybody and say, do you have what you need to do your work today? That's all I'm asking you to start with. He did that, and the whole energy in the place transformed. That little piece of showing that he cared about them. We probably didn't, but he pretended. Melody, you have your hand up. I want to make sure the people who have their hands up get acknowledged.
Thank you. I just wanted to tap into the topic on the cost analysis, and if putting a suggestion out there, as Jack mentioned, I know there's places you mentioned you can find some data and so forth, but it might be helpful if Eden Alternative does something that's in the brochure-ish mindset, if you will, if possible, with administrators, because they are often looking at the bottom line. And if you're going to them first talking about quality of life and et cetera, and what can be done to help make people independent, they're still looking at that bottom line first. So if they can look at something and say, wow, this can be a cost saving, that might be the one thing that helps to attract them to go, oh, we've got this cost saving that happens as a result of implementing this new mindset, this new program. And then that can connect in to changing the feel of the milieu and so forth. So I would encourage Eden Alternative to produce something along those lines, to say, okay, here's your bottom line, here's cost analysis, here's what's going to be saving. Wait, you don't have to spend $100 gajillion on the facility right now on capital projects, but here's some other hands-on things that can be done to make improvements. And you have residents here who are happy, they're not going to move to another facility. You don't have to figure about replacing their bed and so forth. So anyway, just to just another vote to say and encourage to put something out there that would be helpful to get to that point of
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You are totally preaching to the choir, Melody. I've been trying to do that for a long time. And we do. We have data. It's just somebody that can speak it in the right language and tell the right story with it. So that's the team I'm working out with right now. They're much smarter than I am about that, to help us figure out how do we take this data, gather some more data, and then how do we put it into a meaningful story so owners and providers and administrators and directors of nursing can read it and hook into it. So you're on, I'm same wavelength. Yep.
Have you got Alex Spanko on that team?
Yeah. I have an Alex that is
I'm sorry, not that he probably needs more to do, but I'm thinking in terms of how things get phrased and presented. You know, I'd put in a huge vote for him.
okay. I have two Alexes on the team, and one of them's last name starts with an S, but I just met him yesterday, so I don't remember his last name. He's from the Oak Senior Living Communities down in the Atlanta, Georgia area.
Yeah, this one is Eden Alternative. He's the chief or head communications officer.
Will you put his name in the chat box for me?
I shall.
I will see if we
And
can-
Melody, I just want to respond
and you
to
can tell him that I sent you. And then, I'm sorry.
And Melody, I wanted to respond to you. Like our homes in Colorado, most of them they were all Medicaid homes, and a lot of them had young people living with chronic mental illness, and very old institutional homes. But boy, did we transform them into home. They were beautiful communities to come into. And there was one that was one of the older homes. It had a waiting list to work there because we had wise leadership. We had everything in place for that culture change, person-directed care, and empowerment piece that needs to establish. And yes, this can be done. It doesn't require a lot of money. It requires a shift in your thinking and in your belief system. And it's a human rights issue. But Marjorie has her hand up and Dorothy, so I don't want to ignore you too.
Hi, I'm Marjorie Logman. I'm from Illinois. And I'm an advocate with the Illinois Department of Aging. And I went through the whole system and I'm out and very well and very thankful. My goal was not to forget those I left behind. My question is how can we change this from such an efficiency program? Let's herd everybody out to eat, down to eat, herd everybody back, herd everybody to an event, herd them back to more an individuation. Some of the efficiency has to be done with medical needs, but I think for me, what I see is too much efficiency that makes you part of a herd and not an individual. And I so appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, you're right on, Margie. And yeah, we're all about individualized approaches. That's what the regulations say, is very individualized, person's preferences and choices. But you're right, the efficiency of large systems and moving groups of people to the same place at the same time is a mythology that has been embraced, handed to us through the hospital model and through manufacturing and everything else. And I cannot believe what a seductive mistress it is. Because even when people can get to individualized care, they get sucked right back into that efficiency model. All it takes is a stressor on the system. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah,
So we're running over time here, but we have two more hands up. Dorothy's had her hand up. Would you like?
Thank you.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you. I'm from Massachusetts, the Boston area, and people are focused that are in a group called Dignity Alliance, Massachusetts, on getting regulations so that there can be only one person in a room unless it's chosen to have two people in a room. And then people are very concerned about small size houses, small houses. I'm not using the right term, but what I'm hearing from you is that you're less concerned about changing the architecture so that it's not hospital-like. And you think that we don't need some of these changes that are more but is that true? Am I hearing you right? But I just heard you say that they could slip back immediately. So how long do you have to keep on the case?
Hey, Dorothy, we believe in private rooms and private baths. In fact, many of us are fighting for that in other groups, but we are also teaching a way, showing a way that you can have home and community by breaking up the halls into smaller neighborhoods. We can do it. We can't tear down every nursing home. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have, small houses everywhere and people living in that environment, but we can't. So what do we do with what we have? And so we've come up with a way over the years to shift those horrible environments into something that feels and looks like home. Okay.
I see. I
Okay.
see, but you
But
have to keep
we're
on the
with you.
case. And
We're
you have
with
to
you.
keep
We
on the
want-
case.
we're-
Can you come in and fix it and then leave, or do you have to keep coming in?
Well, that's up to the leadership. We're working with leaders the leadership has to drive it. If you have bad leaders, then nothing happens. The key is if anybody has to go into long-term care, you shop around and you look for places where all of the things we're talking about are in place. And if it's not, then you don't go near them.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So Janice, you have your hand up. Is that true? Janice?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. I gave some comments in the chat also. Something else came to mind, and that is, besides liking to volunteer, please utilize me in any capacity, if you don't mind. I was wondering about our administration. Have we taken advantage of the fact that we have one of the oldest presidents around right now, and having some kind of talk going on, or continued talk going on in the United States right now about aging in America? Start out with aging, and then we could get into ableism.
So the Live Oak project we've been working with, and in fact, Jack can speak to this because he's been working with Senator Wyden, and there's the Moving Forward Coalition, which again, a big report came out about what's happening in long-term care, and there's about, I think, 7 committees that are working on addressing all of these issues that have come up, and so there's a lot of activism going on out there. But Jack, do you want to can you spend a minute about Senator Wyden?
Sure, I just wanted to let people here know that as part of the Live Oak Coalition and also Grey Panthers' relationship to Senator Ron Wyden, there is a exploration on how to transform America's nursing homes, which comes exactly to what you're talking about, is how older people and aging is addressed. Much of it is, how do you make these places into true homes? The talks are ongoing, and they're kind of at the nascent stage, and strategy has to be developed to give it a higher likelihood of success. So you should be certain that there's been discussion and strategy. The ultimate result, no one can yet know. But with people like you behind us, there's more of a likelihood, if we can start yelling at our elected officials to say this is a human right, not only a human right, but this is also a cost saving, and it's important for the dignity of all Americans.
So on that note, I think we're going to have to close and thank our presenters for everything that you've shared with us, and look forward to seeing everybody either next week, April 5th, look at our website, or April 25th, which is the next Transformation Tuesday. So thank you, and see you again.
Thank you all for being here.
thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you all.
Bye now.
Bye.